This is a video about the somewhat bizarre idea of using the same area to have multiple controls. And so in terms of the design, it looks like the controls are on top of each other. But if we actually run this, you see it looks like there's just buttons, and you press a button and you get the appropriate message box. And then if you press the alternate mode button, the control changes to a drop-down list box. And that now operates in that mode. And the fact that you have the controls in the same real estate makes it very clear what mode you're in. It's actually a somewhat useful idea, although it requires a little extra effort to write it. Basically what you have to do is first you drag over the 4 buttons, and then you drag over the drop-down style combo box on top of the buttons. And at this point you might say, well, how the heck do I get to the buttons underneath? And potentially I suppose you could have multiple layers if you have multiple modes. I only have 2 modes. And probably the best way to get to the controls is to use this drop-down. And say you can then go to the button 1, and say you wanted the click event, you can click on the events and then double click on click in order to put in the code for that event, and it just shows up as an outline on the design form. But the real trick is the alternate mode button. If we look at that, you see there's basically just an if-else and a call to 2 separate routines. And if the text of the button says alternate mode, it means set alternate mode when this is clicked. And if it doesn't say that, since there's only 2 modes, the only other alternative is set normal mode. And basically what you want to do with these 2 routines is just set the enabled to false for all the controls that aren't supposed to be used, and set the visible to false so they disappear, and then set the enabled to true for all the controls that should be enabled, and the visible to true for all the controls that are visible in this mode, and then change the text to be the appropriate text. Like in alternate mode, you change the text to normal mode because pushing on this button changes back to normal mode, so it's always the opposite mode on the button. And then of course on the form load, you want to set the call the set normal mode button to put it in the right initial mode. And probably the only other thing of interest, if we select the combo box and look at the properties, for one thing, I set the drop-down style to drop-down list, which means it's read-only, and you can just select from the list. And then in order to put items in initially, I click on the ellipse of the items and just add the lines, a line for each item in the combo box. So I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot. And it's useful, but it's kind of complicated. And you might want to just pop up an alternate form or something like that if you don't want to go to a lot of effort. Although I think from the user's point of view, you get a lot of ooh-ah response. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.